have with me Shankar Sharma, Vice Chairman and Joint Managing Director of First Global. That's a boring way of introducing a man who's very colourful, a person with strong views, strongly bullish sometimes, strongly bearish, very correct sometimes, very wrong sometimes, but always very important a voice in the markets. Shankar Sharma, pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks.
Well, first up, we know that you're not very hot if it is an NDA government, but would you agree that if there is any government with a stable majority, there can be a fairly decent kick-up for the economy?
No, I don't agree. I mean, first of all, I don't think it's a done deal that it's an NDA government, number one, or that it's a stable NDA government, number two. I think we must wait for tomorrow and see the numbers because we know the history of all these polls, but there is a reason why usually they are wrong, and they are wrong only one way, in which they always overestimate the BJP vote consistently. And the reason for that is very simple, apart from the conspiracy theories of rigging and manipulation, which I'm 100% sure happens. But more importantly, the socio-economic class that votes for the BJP is normally the upper caste Hindus and the traders who are not afraid to voice their opinion. It's really the lower caste Muslims who vote for the non-NDA parties. They are usually more reticent to voice their views. So hence it's a skewed population that is interviewed for these polls. So I would still hold my horses and say that let's wait for tomorrow. Now let's assume that the NDA does get anything between 250 to 400 seats. I think somebody is putting it as close as 400 or 350 or something like that, which is absolute nonsense. But even let's grant it that. I don't think it materially changes anything in the economy, because last 10 years we've had the most stable government in a long time. Right? I think the economy that this government leaves behind for the next one is in excellent shape relative to any other global economy. I mean, we Indians are great at simply looking inward, focusing only on our lives, our fundamentals, and getting overjoyed or over dismayed. I remember 2004 to 2007 when the bull market was on, we used to, on your channel, hundreds of people came and said, this is India's century, India is an asset class in its own right, the whole world wants India, they can't get enough of India. And when I used to say that, guys, look around, every market is having a bull market, every economy is growing gangbusters, they used to say you're a traitor, you're anti-national. Now it's the exact opposite. Every economy in the world is hurting, bar none. And India is the only one which has managed to keep growing at 5% while reducing its indebtedness in the economy, reducing interest payments as a percentage of revenue receipts in the budget. But we don't want to look at the world. We just want to look inward and feel very, very sorry for ourselves, and we want to boot out a government that has given us excellent macro fundamentals, save for one factor, which is inflation. That also, I think, will trend down. So whichever government comes to power will get a government, an economy which doesn't have any great bubbles, huge imbalances, current account is in okay shape, internal debt is in good shape, we don't have any sovereign debt worth the name. Inflation will trend down, I think, over the next few months' time. Growth at 5% in the context of where the world is not bad. We are a nearly $2 trillion economy. We are not going to get 10% growth. Let's forget about that. China is trending down heavily, but we don't want to look at China. Why not? It's a neighbor. We know what numbers they are throwing up. We know what their premier and presidents are telling their people, that get ready for a very slow period of growth. In my view, whoever comes to power can, unless they screw it up big time, I think India is in okay shape. And this I have said many times in the last 1 year's time, that our fundamentals are the best of any major economy in the world. So unless there is a major screw up by whichever party comes to power, I think we'll be just fine. So it's wrong to say that only a stable government will give us good numbers. And just before I end my answer, 96 to 98 was the most unstable period that we saw in the last 23, 24 years, right, when we had the United Front government. In that period, we grew close to 7.8% in 1 year and 5% in 97, 98, which was actually the year of the great Asian contagion and recession, where everybody was growing like 0% and 1%. We still grew 5%. So that's just to tell you that it really doesn't mean that if we have a less than stable coalition, that the economy goes for an absolute tailspin.
No, this is the season when everyone is drawing up balance sheet for Mr. Manmohan Singh and maybe the UPA. I'm sure they will be very happy to hear what you have just said. There will be, of course, many views on how so much of investment is now at a standstill. I think what 7.5 lakh crore is one count. My point is that with a level of stability and hopefully, it's not a done deal at all. Hopefully a government with a reasonable mandate, 272 seats without any arm twisting. Do you think that we can see growth pretty quickly? What kind of earnings growth are you looking at, and what kind of, therefore, Sensex or Nifty levels you will justify?
No, let's leave aside earnings growth for a minute, because the earnings growth picture for India is largely driven by companies that derive large parts of their income overseas. And Tata Motors is a good case in point. Your IT companies, your pharma companies are largely overseas-driven companies. So, just looking at Sensex earnings or Nifty earnings and saying that that really reflects what the on-the-ground changes for India are as an economy may not be wholly accurate. My point is the so-called investment logjam, and I just wrote a piece in Business Standard a few days back, which is that it's a complete red herring. The investment logjam has happened primarily for one reason, and that one reason is that those investments are not viable. Think about it. I mean, from 2004 till 2009, we never heard of this policy paralysis, or we never heard of bottlenecks of clearances or anything of that sort. It's only when the economic growth started to dip from 2010-11 onwards, right? Because till 2010-11 we were still growing 8.5% despite the crisis. It's only when the growth rate started to come down that companies started to complain about logjams and delaying clearances. Now, why did that happen? Is that a coincidence? The answer is no. The answer is that while growth was great, you could push through projects to your investors and get funding for them from banks and equity investors because the market was still strong. The moment it started to soften, the real, completely unviable economic characteristics of most infrastructure projects started to come to fore. So this so-called roadblock, in fact, in my view, cannot be eradicated unless you completely change the basis on which they have bid and won these projects, which I don't think Mr. Modi can single-handedly swing. So I think we are now expecting complete miracles from Mr. Modi, and I've never seen miracles of that kind get delivered even from a company, let alone from a national leader. It's not going to be easy by any stretch of imagination. And the other thing is that there's been precious little that we know about what the economic vision the BJP has. I mean, it's been all over the place. For farmers, they have said we'll raise the MSPs, which is exactly what the UP has been blamed for. They have not talked about rolling back any of the entitlement programs, which is again the problem, the reason why everybody wants the UP out. They have not clarified their stand on various areas of FDI. All they say is good governance and maximum. There's some bizarre line which means nothing at all. So, I mean, at the end of the day, what do we have to chew on? I mean, we don't even have the clear. The manifesto is a complete bunch of motherhood statements. So I think we must not go too far out and assume godliness for mere mortals. I think we must be conservative.
Well, I'll come back with a few more questions.